promoting Matt Guerreri would be a smart move for Ohio State.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Feel Good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. During today's show, we'll dive into why you can trust Ryan Day to hire the right person to replace Jim Knowles, as well as how Ohio State can start preparing for Larry Johnson's retirement. But first, promoting Matt Guerreri would be a smart move for Ohio State. And there are times when you lose a coordinator to another school in college or to the NFL, you might have to go outside of the program to hire that person's replacement, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have somebody already on staff that fits a scheme that you want, that's a recruiter that can develop talent, that has Ohio roots, that has a track record of calling plays as well, when you have somebody in-house that checks all those boxes, go ahead and hire them. That's Matt Guerreri. He checks all those boxes and a whole lot more, which is why it'd be very, very wise for Ohio State to just go ahead and promote the man and name him defensive coordinator. And that was not something I was thinking earlier in the week, but as I've been digging and thinking about simply what it would mean to hire in-house, to promote Matt Guerreri, you're not losing a lot in the scheme fit. The scheme is actually one of those things that Ryan Day wants, and Ryan Day might want some different things that we didn't get to see in the 3 years of Jim Knowles. Matt Guerreri can help coach that. He can help teach that. He can help the guys that are already on the roster to learn the other parts of the defense that Ohio State didn't use in Knowles' 3 years in Columbus, Ohio, which is great. But one thing about Matt Guerreri that I think gets maybe overlooked is not what he did with Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom. It's the young guys. It's also what he did with Jordan Hancock, because Jordan Hancock did something special this year that I don't think a lot of people really thought was going to happen. He played a lot of deep safety. Now, in Jim Knowles' safety-driven defense, and if Matt Guerreri is the guy to replace Jim Knowles, it would still be a safety-driven defense. One thing you need is 3 safeties that are elite. 3 safeties that can be coaches on the field, that can make all the checks. 3 safeties that get it. And Ohio State had that this year. They had that in Caleb Downs. They had that in Lathan Ransom. And they had that in Jordan Hancock. In all of Jordan Hancock's career, it was, would he be an outside corner or would he be a nickel corner? Or then all of a sudden, would he be a cover safety? He was a cover safety. He didn't really, I don't think he played much outside corner at all. He was also playing deep safety this year in the second half of the season, and it was a great tool for Ohio State this year. That was also under Tim Walton, who is still on staff as well. So you put Guerreri and Walton together, you get some of the best safety play that Ohio State has had in a few years. That's how great those 3 guys played this year. Matt Guerreri was a part of all of that. Matt Guerreri is someone with his 7 years of working under Jim Knowles. He knows that system inside and out. His track record of calling plays, that's going to help Ohio State. Let's just say they do promote him, which I think, as it stands right now, I would have no problem promoting him. He can call the plays. He checks that. The fact that he is from the state of Ohio, played his high school football in Ohio, that's something else too. This is also not his first stint on Ohio State's coaching staff. During Jim Knowles' first year in Columbus, Jim Knowles and Ryan Day brought him in. They hired Guerreri, and Matt Guerreri was only there for 1 year. In 2023, he went to Indiana, was a co-DC, and he coached the safeties. And then in 2024, he came to Ohio State, and we saw how great he was to add to the coaching staff, but also how great the defense played too. Was it Guerreri and Knowles together? I have no idea, but I do know that he was very influential in making sure the defense did everything it should. And there's other things on my notepad here in regards to why I think Guerreri would be a right fit, but it just makes sense. People have jobs in various fields. I've had jobs in warehouses, and I've had office jobs. I sold cars for a lot of years. People have had jobs all over the place. And with the various jobs people have, there's always something internally that causes people to get frustrated when the boss goes outside of the company to hire somebody, when everybody and their mama inside the house says, oh, wait, you're going over there to hire somebody when we already have the replacement right here. We have the person that fits everything you want for that specific role already here in-house. But they say, oh, no, we're going to go outside. We're going to go to Indeed. They're going to go to LinkedIn. They're going to go to Monster.com and all these other sites to try to find somebody to fill this role. It ruffles feathers. It makes people a little uneasy to come to work the next day. People have all these emotions, and I've been there. I've seen it. I've maybe been in a few of those conversations that we have in regards to the things that people say after someone gets brought in to fill a role. When people in-house say, oh, no, that person is already here. Hire this person. Hire this person. Now, I don't know if, let's just say Ryan Day does go outside to hire somebody. I don't know that it's going to ruffle the feathers inside the coaching staff. The players may not like it. The players are very, very smart. The players understand what's going on. And if I'm Ryan Day, even though you're going to have only going to have Caleb Downs for one more year, I would tap into Caleb Downs' brain and say, okay, what do you think about Matt G? Now, if you don't want to say Guerrieri, or if you look at the spelling on a piece of paper and you're like, who? How you say that? Robert? No, just call him G. Hey, man, what do you think about G? Oh, he's the guy. Just that simple. He's like, oh, yeah. I could tell that when I first got here. He's the guy. He's basically the guy that knows Knowles' system almost as good as Knowles. He's learned under him. He's been trained under him. Those 7 years that he was there. Oh, yeah, he's probably a guy that's not going to go around and be here for 2 or 3 years and then leave you down the road to go to a different job. No. He was at Guerrieri now. Guerrieri was at Duke for 10 years. Played college football, had a couple GA jobs, and then after that, he was at Duke from 2012 until 2021. That's when he went to Ohio State and then to Indiana and then back to Ohio State. He's only 35 years old as well, so he's young. He's someone that probably wants to stay in one spot to just build up his family in one spot, not trying to be a coach that bounces around back and forth all around the country. There are so many positive things, even outside of the things we've already talked about in the boxes getting checked as far as does a guy fit everything you want. Guerrieri does fit all of those things, but also his youth, he's relatable. He can help relate to the players that are coming in that he's trying to recruit. There are so many things that make Matt Guerreri a great option. And if you can go in-house, I'll say it again, and find a replacement for a coordinator or for a position coach, do it. Ryan Day already did that with Keenan Bailey. He was an analyst. He was not someone that was a position coach previously. No, he got promoted to being the tight ends coach. Nothing wrong with that. I think it was great that he did that. I think it would be wise for Ryan Day once again. Don't go outside. Stay inside. It'd be a very smart move for Ohio State if Ryan Day promoted Matt Guerreri from not just being the safeties coach, but to being the defensive coordinator and the safeties coach. Because even though he's in his mid-30s, I think he's done enough and has a track record that will show he can teach the scheme, he can coach it up, he can develop, he can recruit. Oh, yeah, he has those Ohio roots too. That's very important when thinking about bringing someone in to be Ohio State's next defensive coordinator. Let's just say Ohio State promotes Matt Guerreri. That helps Ohio State not only with their defensive coordinator, but in another key position on the coaching staff. We'll dive into what that is next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans are unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. Guys, it's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff. It shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. I use Game Time Picks to grab tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value, 4 amazing seats, and I could even preview the view from my spot before buying. The all-in pricing is a game changer. No surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. When it comes to promoting Matt Guerreri, yes, that would check off one of the boxes on Ryan Day's to-do list during the offseason. But it could potentially help check off another box that Ohio State and Ryan Day might be trying to figure out a plan to accomplish. Larry Johnson is a great coach. Larry Johnson is a guy that could be on the outside of Ohio State's coaching staff very, very soon. I love what Larry Johnson has done. He's been under a lot of scrutiny, and all Larry Johnson has done recently is develop talent consistently over and over and over again. He is a big reason that we got the best of Jack Sawyer in the playoff. He is a big reason why JT Tuimoloau showed and played his best in the playoff. Zach Harrison, Jonathan Cooper, do those names ring a bell? Larry Johnson has been a fixture at Ohio State, and it's going to be very, very sad when he's no longer coaching in Columbus. He's in his early to mid 70s, and he is a guy that might be planning on retiring soon. And while promoting Matt Guerreri makes a lot of sense, there would be one extra assistant coach spot left at Ohio State. And if Matt Guerreri gets promoted, becomes a defensive coordinator, and let's just say he's still coaching the safeties, which I think would be a very smart thing to do, that other assistant coach spot could go to a guy that could be Larry Johnson's replacement and have a co-defensive line grouping on the coaching staff. Maybe Larry Johnson's the overseer and the other guy is working either with the D ends or the D tackles, similar to Guerrieri and Tim Walton. Matt Guerreri's with safeties. Tim Walton's with the corners, but Tim Walton is a secondary coach. It would be a similar thing. One guy's a D-line coach. Whoever comes in could be either D tackle or D end, but whoever comes in to fill that 10th assistant coach spot would be a guy that's next in line to be the D-line coach at Ohio State. I think that would be very smart for Ryan Day to think about that right now when it comes to Matt Guerreri. You have to pay Matt Guerreri a competitive rate. You can't just pay him something just to get him make him allow him to have a hometown discount. You don't want him to do that at all. No, pay him what he's worth. We're not in the business of making guys cheap offers and cheap deals. Nothing like that. No, give him what he's worth, make it competitive, and allow everybody to just see, no, even though it's an in-house guy, we're giving him what he's worth. He has a track record of success. That 2023 Indiana defense, that defense was a better defense than you might think. Would just go up against Ohio State, man. Like, not a lot of people could go up against Ohio State's offense and have a lot of success. You can. The defense, the offense was just too good. 2023, 22, 21. I mean, it was just too good. And so I think it would really help, and it makes a whole lot of sense to do that. Now, for those of you that were listening to this show a year ago, I came on here and started talking about, well, if Larry Johnson leaves, who would somebody that's currently a D-line coach that makes sense to come up here and replace Larry Johnson? Jason Taylor's name came up on this show probably 2 to 3 times, maybe 5, but at minimum 2 to 3, because I think Jason Taylor, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, the guy that when you think about Jason Taylor playing football, you realize you want to be on his side, not against him, because he is a dog. I think that would be a great move for Ohio State to go out there and to pursue this right now. Jason Taylor is a great developer of talent. He's currently right now coaching at Miami. He's been at Miami since 2022. He also coached a few years down at St. Thomas Aquinas down in Florida from 2017 to 2021. So he's not new to coaching. He got out of he took a little bit of break between his playing days and his coaching days, but he's been working. He has been moving up. And currently right now, over the past couple of years at Miami, he's been the defensive end coach. So let's just say you get him in here now with the thought that down the road he would be the permanent D-line coach at Ohio State. And next year you bring him in, Larry Johnson's the D-line coach. And let's say you allow Jason Taylor to simply focus on the defensive ends. Who better to focus on the defensive ends at Ohio State than a guy who made a name for himself in the NFL, being a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and has been doing it down there in Coral Gables. And I think they've been playing pretty well down there on the defensive side of the ball. That's not a bad plan. Now, if Jason Taylor is not the right guy, go out and get somebody else. But still, the thought is the same. Whoever is the 10th assistant coach, this is also us assuming that Chip Kelly is staying in Columbus. Now, we don't know. He's out there recruiting when he could. We're not sure what Chip Kelly's going to do, but we do know this. For this scenario, Chip Kelly's still there. So there's only one other assistant coach spot. Also, Justin Fry is still there as well. A couple guys that are trying to be pulled to the NFL by a few teams in the National Football League. Just go out there and find the right guy. I'm not trying to push Larry Johnson outside of Ohio State either. I'm not trying to do that. Even though there are going to be people talking about it, and it's a good thing to talk about. I don't think it's a negative thing to say, what is Ohio State's plan when Larry Johnson retires? No, I think it's very wise for shows like this and other shows out there that you may listen to or watch on the YouTube. I think it's very wise to look ahead and try to plan for the future. You do it for your family. Me, my wife and I plan and talk about things. How are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle that? Our son is almost 7 months old. And even though he's very, very young, we're still planning for 8 months and then a year and then 2 years and then 5. We're planning for the future. You have to. If you don't plan for the future, man, life will just run right over you and just run right over you. It's almost like you're tumbling down a hill. You try to go skiing at a slope with your buddies, and all of a sudden, see, I don't even ski, so I don't know like what the terminology is. I have been skiing once in my life, and I think it was with Boy Scouts. I forget who I went with. It was either Boy Scouts or a church group. All I know was I stayed on that little kiddie hill, the smallest one. I know there were different levels, and as the levels went up, and it got a little bit more difficult, I said, "Oh no, y'all can try that stuff. I'm not doing it. I am staying right here." And I know that. I was not afraid to do that, but we have to plan for stuff. And as wise as Ryan Day is, and the things that Ryan Day has learned in his coaching career, I think they're going to help him whenever Larry Johnson does retire. And there could have been conversations behind closed doors between Larry Johnson and Ryan Day and Ross Bjork and maybe Ted Carter as well, to know, like, this is a timetable. This is what I'm thinking. I may have 4 years left. I may have 5 years left. Maybe he only has 1 year. I don't know. But that's going to help them figure out, okay, Larry Johnson, you're alive. You're not going anywhere. We're going to keep you until you decide to retire or until you decide to leave. In the time being, you give us this timetable. I'm not trying to put a number on it, but you give us this timetable, and we have to work on a plan to try to bridge the gap so it's a very smooth transition from where we currently are with you on the coaching staff to whoever is next to coach a D-line at Ohio State. The thing is, though, with Larry Johnson being one of the rare coaches that's still on Ohio State's coaching staff from when Urban Meyer was a head coach, the next person has big shoes to fill. A lot of shoes. And Larry Johnson is similar to Matt Guerreri earlier. They're not coaches that are trying to move around a lot. Larry Johnson was at Penn State from 96 to 2013. And then for 2014 until now, he's been at Ohio State. Also during that time period, he was on the coaching staff when his son, Larry Johnson, was a star running back at Penn State. That was in my early days while watching college football. When I became a heavier Ohio State fan, I didn't realize that Larry Johnson, a football player at Penn State, was the son of Larry Johnson, a D-line coach at Ohio State. Didn't realize that at all. It was fun making that little connection between those two guys and then realizing Larry Johnson, he wants to stay at one place. He's not trying to bounce around. And hopefully the next guy who replaces Larry Johnson, he wants to stay at one place and doesn't want to bounce around. Ryan Day is in a very interesting spot right now because he's trying to replace Jim Knowles, the guy who did a lot of good things at Ohio State. And I'm wondering if we can trust Ryan Day to make the right decision. I have my thoughts about that. I'll share them after the break. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. So anytime somebody leaves a coaching staff, the head coach has a very big decision to make. Who is going to fill that role? Is it going to be somebody internally? Will it be somebody that's in college that has a track record of doing something, so it's a smooth transition from one school to the next? Will it be somebody from the NFL? Bill O'Brien came from the Patriots to Ohio State. Who is that person? Where are they going to come from? Why is it that person? There are so many questions we can ask in regards to who's going to replace Jim Knowles and the things that they have to have in their resume to make them the right person to fit that role, and all the crossing the T's and dotting the I's. We want to make sure we do all of this stuff correctly. When it comes to Ryan Day, he's the same way. He wants to make sure he does all the stuff correctly. But Ryan Day has a track record, especially over the past few years, of making the right hires. And I think you and I could trust Ryan Day to once again make the right hire and to find the right person to replace Jim Knowles. It's easier said than done. It's very easy to come on the show and say, oh, you can trust Ryan Day. But saying that without actually having any reason to say it or any proof about why that you're making that statement, that's very foolish. Simply, if you look at the last three coordinator hires, Ryan Day got them right. Bill O'Brien, Chip Kelly, and Jim Knowles. Now, many of you may have said Bill O'Brien was a bad hire. I would actually push back against that wholeheartedly and think that if Bill O'Brien was at Ohio State this year, would the offense have looked the same? No. Would Will Howard have had a career year? Absolutely, because Bill O'Brien gets the best out of his quarterbacks at every single stop in college and in the National Football League. So there would have been no reason why people would have said, hey, being a Bill O'Brien, and you wouldn't have had a career year under Will Howard. I actually think you would have, because Ryan Day is here, and Ryan Day is a big reason that Will Howard changed his mechanics and Will Howard grew the way that he did this year. I have trust in Ryan Day, but that hire with Bill O'Brien, he got that one right. But we didn't see any games. We just know Bill O'Brien's track record, what he is as a coach, how he runs offenses, his success that he's had in the NFL and in college. It would have made sense. Chip Kelly. Now, when you're a friend of the head coach and you're also one of the best offensive minds in the sport, it makes a lot of sense. So you have a family tie, former coach of Ryan Day as well. I mean, there's so many different ties that coach together in the National Football League. I believe in a couple of stops. There are so many things that made that hire make a whole lot of sense outside of the football. But when you look at the football, if you take the family tie and the coaching outside of it, just coaching together, and then Kelly coaching Day when Day was a quarterback in college, if you take all that stuff out of it and look at the football, of course it makes sense. Absolutely. And you get a man who wants to take a $4 million pay cut to just coach ball and focus on ball, man, yes, makes a lot of sense. But then you look at Jim Knowles. Now, it was before those two hires, but Jim Knowles, that was a good hire. It was the right hire, and he was regarded 3 years ago as one of the best defensive minds in the sport. And what did you see at Ohio State? He is one of the best defensive minds in the sport. It's easy to see with Jim Knowles' track record why that hire made sense at the time. And then now looking after Jim Knowles is out of Ohio State, you can say it makes sense. But then it's a little bit different. Let's go a little bit further. Position coach-wise, I think he's made up some other good hires too. Here's one, keeping Brian Hartline on staff and finding a way to keep Brian Hartline on staff. Not only when Brian Hartline, in the transition between Urban Meyer to Ryan Day, but even as Brian Hartline has been interviewing for other jobs. I believe he interviewed for the Cincy job, interviewed for the West Virginia job this current offseason. Even though Brian Hartline is a wanted man, and there's a school in the South that I've heard that wants Brian Hartline really, really bad, Ryan Day's figured out a way to keep him. That's great. Also, the James Laurinaitis hire. Oh, a guy that has been a GA for a couple of years all of a sudden gets promoted to being a linebackers coach at his alma mater, where he was a 3-time All-American. He's a Buckeye legend. That's a lot of pressure. Knocked that hire out of the park. Tim Walton knocked that hire out of the park. Matt Guerreri, he knocked that hire out of the park. Carlos Loughlin, he knocked that hire out of the park. Justin Fry, a lot of people said, no, you didn't get this one right. I would tell you, he knocked that hire out of the park. No coach is perfect. And Justin Fry has things to work on. But there's a reason why the Chicago Bears are interviewing him for the O-line job in Chicago. Ohio State fans can say whatever they want. You don't get that run in the playoff without Justin Fry leading it the way that he did. You're down to your 9th offensive lineman, and you're putting up 215 rushing yards in the Natty. Oh, yeah, it helps when your defense holds the opponent to only 53 rushing yards, but you're also averaging 5.2 yards a pop in the Natty with your 9th offensive lineman. Think about how difficult it is. You're basically playing with your second unit. And what are you getting? Really good play out of your O-line and you're winning the battle in the trenches. Snap after snap after snap. Give that man his flowers. No, he ain't passed away. He's still living. He's still breathing. Give that man his flowers because he deserves them. I was I was one of those people, and at the time he deserved it, that was being very critical of Justin Fry, and I didn't think that he was getting the job done, and I wasn't shying away from it. Bill Landis, who's on the podcast, pushed back against the host of that show. I'm not saying names on purpose. Those of you that know the show, you know what I'm talking about. He pushed back when someone on that show was trying to say Justin Fry this, Justin Fry that. And at the time, there was no reason to pump up Justin Fry in that way. There wasn't. But now looking back at it at the end of the year, you see Justin Fry got that thing done, man. There were times he didn't do it. Recruiting isn't his best thing, but he can definitely develop talent. Has had a lot of guys get drafted in the first or second round. We'll probably have first or second round picks. Two guys get drafted in the first 2 rounds of the draft this year. There we go. That's credit to Ryan Day. Ryan Day got that hire right. The Carlos Loughlin one, I mentioned it earlier, that's very interesting. And I want to detail this one very, very well. Tony Alford left Ohio State, I believe, either right at the beginning of spring practice or right before spring practice, but it was late in the cycle. The fact that Ohio State could lure Carlos Loughlin from Oregon to Columbus, Ohio, at the time that they did, knowing that you're having a running back already on that's been in the program for 3 years, knows the system, knows what Ryan Day wants. You're bringing a guy up in Judkins from the South up to Ohio State who's learning the system. And then all of a sudden you're coming in and Ryan Day's been coaching the running backs trying to fill that gap because there's no running back coach. You're coming in having to pick up things right away, and you do it seamlessly. You say some things. You don't coach no soft batch cookie, and it's all these things that are saying that people like me say on shows, and it make me laugh because it's true. I had never heard anybody say that before, but I understand what he's talking about because I pick up what he's putting down, and I understand it. When you look at how these guys play and how they run the football, they understand it too. They pick up what he's putting down. I also think that next year, in year number 2 of Loughlin at Ohio State, you're going to see great play from James Peoples, from CJ Donaldson, whoever RB3 is. If they use 3 running backs, I'm not sure if they will or not. You're going to see great play. Ryan Day got that hire right. Even at an odd time in the offseason, he got that hire right. Took some time to figure it out. Didn't want to rush into anything, but said, no, this is the guy. Presented the contract. It made a whole lot of sense. So whoever the next defensive coordinator is at Ohio State, or let's just say that Chip Kelly does go off and Justin Fry does go off. Let's just say all those things happen where Ohio State has to hire 3 new assistant coaches. There could be internal hires. There could be hires from outside, from college football or from the NFL. Maybe Ryan Day goes to the CFL. I have no idea. But I do know this. You and I can trust Ryan Day to hire the right person to fill any of the assistant coach spots at Ohio State. It's easy to say because Ryan Day's track record has showed everybody he's getting hires right. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes here on a Friday. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Buckeye fans, we're up out of here on a Friday. We'll see you next time.